Ready?
Yeah, boot it.
Hey Matt, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?
I'm too. So, Strange Days. This was my film choice.
It was.
Before we talk about it, what was your reaction upon seeing it? Was it interesting to you?
It was kind of harrowing on the first watch, actually, which you did warn me about, but then
Mm.
I misunderstood. On the second watch, I was kind of able to appreciate it a little bit more, sort of analytically. But yeah, I thought it was a great piece of work, and I kind of feel sad that it didn't do that well, but also I kind of understand why it didn't do that well, and I don't feel that those are artistic reasons. It's more economic. Really interesting choice. Very good film.
Excellent. That's good. I know what you mean by harrowing. I think that's exactly the right reaction. If you don't feel like that when you encounter that film for the first time, then there's maybe you're a bit numb to the world. So yes, good on you. And I think it's a really serious film, and we'll get into why those harrowing moments are serious pieces of thought about the world, I guess.
Yeah.
A little later on.
Yeah.
Hey, Mace, this is uncharacteristic behavior for you, Miss Ice Water in her veins, super chill.
You pushed me too far, Lenny. You made me lose it in front of a client. I could get fired.
Are we still friends?
I don't know, Lenny. You see, friendship is more than one person constantly doing favors for another.
I know that.
I don't hustle my friends.
Hey, I wanna
But you
shoot.
just suck people along with your schemes, your scams, and your slick act.
We're still buddies, aren't we?
Don't just be using the time that I'm talking to be thinking about what you gonna say next. You listening?
Yeah.
Lenny, your ass is always broke. You go from one score to the next, and you're getting strung out. You don't even see it. It's your brain, so you do whatever the hell you want with it. But not on my watch, you understand me? I got a child, I got rent, and I got an ex-husband doing hard time who doesn't send me a dime of support. I'm just trying to hold on here.
I know you wouldn't be saying all this if you didn't care about me. Thanks, Mace, really.
You're getting out with Famitsu, and that's the end.
So, Dave, do you want to tell us a little bit about the film?
Yeah, cool. It's so Strange Days, 1995, directed by Kathryn Bigelow, written by James Cameron of Avatar and Aliens fame, and a guy called Jay Cox as well. So it's kind of a film noir sci-fi. I guess that's a good way. It's film noir cyberpunk, people might call it as well. And it involves the story of a guy called Lenny Nero, who's a bit of a he's a bit of a sleazy waster, to be brutally honest. And he gets beaten up and hurt so many times during the film. In a sense, that's quite gratifying because he is that kind of cat. Like they say, some people have got faces you want to punch, and he really kind of has that face to all of the people in the film, even the people that love him.
It's very abrasive.
Yeah. And he's sleazy, and anyway. So Lenny is a dealer in clips that are recorded via this machine called a SQUID, which is let me get this right, a superconducting quantum interface device, and it's this kind of thing that sits on your head, and it records from your brain your perceptions, your affects, the way you feel when you're encountering something. And so people use it to create pornography and various things like that. Well, a really intense experiences, and they're recorded, and then they're on the black market. Apparently, the device was, I think, developed by the FBI to replace the wires and stuff like that. But then it hit the black market. So that's what he's doing. He's an ex-cop. He's down on his luck.
I think it was CIA, actually.
Was it CIA? That's more like it, yes. They sound more like they'll be using something like that. Along the way, there's two significant people in his life. One is Faith, his ex-girlfriend, played by the wonderful Juliette Lewis, who wants to become a rock star and has kind of got a few problems in that domain. So we'll get on more on about Faith a bit later. And then there's Mace. Mace, it has got her shit together. In a real way, is the centre of the film. Mace is played by Angela Bassett, and she is just phenomenal in this. When she's on screen, she commands the frame, and everything she says, the way she looks at people, it just fills you with awe. She's just got this kind of magnetic personality and authority. Authority, that's the word I really want. She's got an authority in the world, She's quite a serious character. So those are the three main characters, if you like. And the story involves, I think there's kind of three levels to the story, really. The first one, or one of the levels, is, look, this is set 2 days before the end of the last century. I think when one of the opening shots is of 1 a.m., 30th December 1999, it comes up. So it's 2 days to go, if you like, before we go into the next century. And you've got this sense of end of days, apocalypse, rapture, all of these words are used. And so the mise-en-scène of set in LA, so the mise-en-scène of the streets of LA are just a riot. They're a carnival. There's looting going on, there's partying going on, crime, everything you can imagine. Everyone's on the streets, everyone's out 24 hours, and everyone's losing control a bit. And so it's got a real chaotic feel to it. And so that's kind of one level of the film, and I think we can talk about that a little bit. The next level is, we've already talked about it, the SQUID, this idea of memory and holding on to thoughts, because Lenny is still hung up on his ex, on Faith. And, you see these kind of moments of him watching clips that he'd taken when he was with her, as a kind of form of holding on to her, not letting go. And so I think there's a real dialogue here about memory and how memory can be a trap and all of those sorts of things. So those are two sort of like threads that go through the film. And of course, the third, in a sense, is the one that's, if you like, front and center and the real narrative of the film. And that is, there's the murder of a rapper, and there is a serial killer going about killing women. And these sort of crimes are kind of resonating with each other throughout the film, and that kind of drives the narrative forward.
This is your life, right here, right now. It's real time. You hear me? Real time. Time to get real, not playback. You understand? She doesn't love you anymore. Maybe she did once, I don't know, but she doesn't now. These are used emotions. It's time to trade them in. Memories were meant to fade, Lenny. They're designed that way for a reason.
Have you ever been in love with someone who didn't return that love?
Yeah, Lenny. I have.
Didn't stop you from loving them, right? Or being able to understand them or forgive them?
I guess.
Didn't stop you from wanting to protect them, did it?
Let's talk about memory first. We should start with the past. Or one of the sort of the grounds of the premise of the film is this SQUID technology, the ability to record someone else's memories and then play them back so that you live them as though they are your memories. As the main character Lenny says when he's trying to sell this experience. It's not a recording; it's life. It's as good as life. So it's sort of like going, not just revisiting your own memories in this visceral way, but living other people's memories, going to places that you've not ever been before. So I've been sold these experiences on tapes, or not tapes, they're actually mini discs for some reason. I'm sure money changed hands for that.
Cynical sod.
In a way, it really nails what the internet will become.
Oh, go on.
I mean, okay, we don't literally record our memories on tape and then relive and then see others. But if you look at what, I'd say even the camera phone rather than the smartphone and how that's linked into social media, the photographs we take. Don't want to spend too much time on this point because, a lot of people have made similar ones. But, if you go on Instagram in particular, I think, and you just sort of see these glimpses into other people's lives and the photographs of places that you've not been, and the emotions that they're having. There is still a kind of digitization and distribution of our experiences and our memories. And just as when you look at the stars, you see in the past, when you're looking at in an Instagram feed or a Facebook feed or whatever, you were seeing into the pasts and memories of other people when they've sort of said what they did with their day and how they're feeling, and expressed in views and showed you pictures of their cat. Most usually that's what I do, is I just put pictures of my cat on the internet. And I think this film's exploring, obviously through a different technology, but exploring that idea that our experiences themselves, rather than becoming true memory, which would be something that fades and goes into the past, where even though we can relive it, we can never, well, even though we can recall it, we can never relive it. This technology allows memory to remain in the present, which allows us, or allows Lenny, to remain in the past to an unhealthy extent. So one of the things, I mean, sort of bracketing out the issue of, for entertainment and for pornography and other reasons, replaying other people's memories. Lenny's personal use of this technology is of recordings he took when he was with Faith.
Yeah.
And still with her. And I mean, I think anyone who's been through a breakup knows the difficulty it is to move on and to go start thinking about the future rather than the past that didn't work out, and sort of escaping it in a sense. What, the risk of just sort of like dwelling too much in what happens and thinking, well, I'll never have another experience like that. Lenny does that, but also he literally, through this technology, just goes home and plays these old videotapes of him and his girlfriend going out on dates, making love, all of these things, which is not that much. I mean, the modern equivalent would be going through your ex's Instagram feed and just looking at the pictures you've got on your phone, and just to wrap it up, the film through this technology is thinking about the dangers of digital memory and how it can be a hampering for us to move on or to do new things within our lives, and sort of get us stuck in a stasis. A bit like when Max, the best friend of Lenny, says he thinks the world's going to end because we've already consumed all ideas, we've done every type of bubble gum, we've got every political system. Where can we get any of the new from? But really, it's more of a Nietzschean point, but it's the lingering memory of all of those other ideas, which might make it difficult for us to think inventively because we're so trapped in the way things have always been or used to have been that we can't think of how things could be.
Yeah, I used the word "the trap" there, and I've got that written down. Memory as a trap. And Mace says, echo everything you've said there is kind of unfolds from the film. Mace says at one point, memories are meant to fade, Lenny. They're designed that way, I think she says. And you could take the point that and I think you're exactly right with it's a really early scene when he goes home before kind of the whole narrative kicks off for him, at least. And he goes home and watches this tape of Faith, and they're roller skating. They spend an afternoon in bed. While they're in bed, it's playing the Bob Marley "Three Little Birds" song, and I misheard the lyrics of melodies pure and true, and I had to go and look it up because I heard it as of memories pure and true. And there's a sense, this recording device. Our memories are faulty as much as anything.
Yes.
Yeah, they colour things, whereas what we've got here, our memories pure and true. Yeah, the misheard Bob Marley.
Yes.
Yep. And what it made me think of really was this is even worse to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And just to develop Mace's point philosophically, so to speak, it reminded me of Nietzsche in The Uses and Abuses of History for Life. And he talks at one point about forgetting and the importance of forgetting, saying something along the lines of, look at the cows in the field chomping away. They're in today. They don't get hung up on the past. They live in the present, all of this, that, and the other. And we need to learn to do that. Forgetting is really healthy, to us. And it allows us, as you were saying a little bit earlier, to move on and to take the past and reshape it and remold it and use it for something else. even unconsciously.
Yes.
Even unconsciously. So this film's really exploring that. In a sense, it's quite ahead of its time, and as you said, with the internet. And, you know, when people put that on, they become absolutely... I mean, the way they're filmed and the reactions they get and the affects they're displaying through their bodies, you know, can be quite horrific for them if it's something horrible, you know? And I think it's looking at that horror of memory. Let's call it the horror of memory.
Now listen, I want you to know what we're talking about here, okay? This is not like TV, only better. This is life. It's a piece of somebody's life. It's pure and uncut. It's straight from the cerebral cortex. I mean, you're there, you're doing it, you're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're feeling it.
What kind of things, exactly?
Exactly anything. It's whatever you want, whoever you want to be, okay? I mean, if you want to go skiing without leaving your den, you can, but I'm assuming that a guy like you want to go skiing, you fly to Aspen. That's not what you're interested in here. It's about the stuff that you can't have, right? The forbidden fruit, Like running into a liquor store with a 357 Magnum in your hand, feeling the adrenaline pumping through your veins, huh? Or, you see that guy over there with the drop-dead Filipino girlfriend? Wouldn't you let it be that guy for 20 minutes? The right 20 minutes? Yeah, and I can make it happen, and you won't even tarnish your wedding ring.
Sounds good.
See, I can get you what you want. I can get you anything. You just have to talk to me. You have to trust me, okay? Trust me. Because I'm your priest. I'm your shrink. I am your main connection to the switchboard of the souls. I'm the magic man. Santa Claus is the subconscious. You say it. You think it. You can have it. You want a girl? You want two girls? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what your thing is. What you're curious about. You want a guy? Maybe you want to be a girl. Hey, think of that. Be a girl. See what that feels like. I mean, maybe you want a nun to tie you up. It's all doable.
Talk to me about costs here.
Okay, no, before we get into numbers, I want you to try a taste, okay? I got a deck with me.
Right here.
Step into my office.
Another thing, it's sort of related, that Lenny says when talking about this technology, is he says he's selling experiences, which I also think is quite, I mean, maybe prophetic is the wrong word, because it is a process that had already been happening for a while, but, you know, we've increasingly come to think about art, and indeed everything, as an experience. So rather than thinking of going on holiday as going somewhere to see what it's like and spending time with people you know, or your family or whatever, it's an experience. You know, I'm going to go, and the product I will get from that is an experience. I was employed for quite a long time as a student experience officer for students at a university. It was what was being sold was not an education, but it was the experience of having been at university, you know, the cinematic experience, which again I think really comes out of marketing, of like trying to get people to go to cinemas rather than just watching things at home. Although really what all they needed to do was to charge you 20 quid to stream them, whereas you can pay 5 quid to watch them in the cinema, and then people will start going, which is certainly what it seems like over lockdown. I'll probably cut that out, but I can't believe how much they charge you to stream the movies at home that are at the cinema.
Leave it in. We are a cinema podcast. That is appropriate.
Well, I can remember. I mean, this is something that might not go in. But if it does go in, I'll leave this bit of me saying it might not go in. Right? I think it's View. Though maybe the other chains do it as well. But I just noticed that, you know, you go to the cinema and they start playing the adverts, and then they start playing the trailers, and then you get like a final thing where you get this film which is just meant to show off the technology of the screen and the speakers and stuff like that. So it's sort of like it's sort of stuff you'd never get in a film usually, but you know, sort of really pushing the fidelity of the speakers to its limit, and all of these like fancy effects and stuff like that. And it's all about, you know, the Sony something or other 4K experience and things like, just trying to make you feel like the cinema itself is something tangible, when really the cinema is just the window through which you see the film. And it's the film that you're there to see. It just really sort of struck me as, someone who gets irritated by this fetish of the experience. That it's not what you do when you go on holiday or what you see when you go to the cinema. It's the very fact of having done it that gets counted as this thing called an experience, which is then sold on top of that.
Yeah, I like that point.
It's not the learning that you have at university; it's the experience of having been there, and which I mean, the thing is, if in common sense language, the student experience is probably just getting drunk for 3 years, whereas what's meant by the student experience as a is sort of, I actually saw it in a booklet pamphlet released by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation when I was in this job trying to understand what it was. They described it as the sum of each individual interaction you have with the university from the beginning to end. It's just a weird way of looking at things, and this is all part of the idea of things being frozen in memories and not really not allowing the memories to fade. They sort of get trapped in the present by this the technology that Lenny has. But equally, this is what's happening to experiences. So what happens if you freeze a memory and it becomes an experience, and then that experience is something that you can trade and share as part of your personal brand on social media, or sell to a dealer like Lenny to sell to yuppies who want a new thrill. Although I haven't really got any experiences that Lenny would want to buy.
Yeah.
Driving Mr. Lenny.
It's going to be a big night. Can't you feel it? The energy in the air. There's money to be made. There's dreams to sell.
Sleazy to pedal.
See, that is so unenlightened. I sell experiences. The way I see it, I'm performing a humanitarian service. I probably save lives.
I want to hear this part.
Look, everybody needs to take a walk to the dark end of the street sometime. It's what we are. Now, the risks are out of line. The streets are a war zone. Sex can kill you. So you slip on the troads, get what you need, almost as good as a real thing, a lot safer.
Porno. Face it. You sell porno to wirehead.
Harsh and untrue. My clients are professionals. They're people with taste. Some of them are even celebrities.
Yeah, what celebrities?
Oh, the guy from the news.
He does the weather.
Well, that counts.
There's kind of two things I think that happen, and then they kind of dovetail. One of the things as you're watching the film is, how do these two storylines fit together? And eventually they do. But that's kind of one of the tasks the film sets you to think about that.
I mean, that's part of the noir thing, isn't it? So it's where you don't really know what's going on.
Absolutely. It's because you're always in the subjective viewpoint of the detective in the early noirs, yeah? Which, again, folds back on this film with the squid. The opening scene of this film is somebody running. It's showing what they are experiencing as they go to jump, escape the police, go to a robbery, escape the police, try to jump a bit between two buildings. And that reminded me of a film called Dark Passage, which is from 1947, towards the end of the real classic noir. And it's another Bogart and Bacall kind of film noir. I think it's the third one they made together. And this is shot, the first part of it's shot from the perspective of Bogart, but it's done because he's going to get plastic surgery. When he removes the bandages, it then is Bogart, and then the camera looks at him, if you see what I mean, up to that point. So it's motivated. But I mean, what they're doing there is putting the camera is there reflecting the way in which the kind of noir film works, that you as a subject are in the world and you can't know the plot there. You can't see the kind of metadata that's going along, that some films will show you the kind of crime being done over there and all of this and that and the other. This develops that. It's not just like that, because in particular we've got the Mace character and Lenny who are involved in a number of things. But it's definitely got that, mate. Absolutely.
I mean, actually, sort of thinking about what you said about in the classic, the early noirs anyway, you only see things from the perspective of the investigator. That it's already quite a radical thing that this film's doing with the SQUID recordings, because what's happening is Lenny's been given things from other people's first person perspective. So it's actually he does get to see the murders. He does get to see these things. So it's sort of like, because of this sort of ossification of memories and experiences, they can be transferred to the noir detective, and he does get to see it from someone else's point of view, but never from a God's eye point of view.
Yeah, never the context, like fragments. That's really good, Matt. I really like that. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
There is that bit in The Big Sleep where Bogart is outside of this house. He's been trailing someone, and suddenly there's a gunshot, and then a couple of cars, like sort of like run off, and he gets inside, and there's a body on the floor, and the daughter of his client is posed in a compromising position in front of a camera which has no film in. He's got no experience of what's in there. You can only infer what's going on, whereas Lenny's equivalent situations, he does actually get the recording of what happened. He gets to be the person who was in the room, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah, and you get these, he gets the fragments, but he doesn't get the context in which they fit in, which is kind of even more. On one hand, it's even more confusing.
Tell me.
I can't tell him. You gotta see it.
I'm not doing it.
I know what you think about The Wire, but you gotta see it. It's that important. Okay.
I'm sorry this has to be your first playback.
It's all right. Keep your eyes closed, or you'll see double.
We get a woman called Iris, who's an old friend of Faith's and who still hangs out with Lenny, is trying to escape two cops that are chasing her, and they're brutal. These two cops.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we've heard about, and it's quite you kind of put these things together. We've heard about that a rap star called Jericho 1 and his member of his band, the Prophets of Light, they're called. Brilliant name. Another member of his band called Replay, another brilliant name, some great names in this, have been shot and they're dead. And Iris has got this evidence, and she keeps trying to give it to Lenny, right? And things keep getting in the way. So, and he's not really interested. He's not really switched on. He's never really switched on until he has to be. Yeah, they keep failing to have the moment where they realise what the crime is. And it's when Iris dies, and somebody gives Lenny a tape, gives Lenny a SQUID tape of Iris's murder, and it's beyond a murder. It is a sexual attack, a murder, and also it's even worse than that because there's the way in which it captures up her emotions as well, with her wearing a device. So it's really brutal. Yeah. It's really horrible. And Lenny's reaction to that, which is obviously put there in the script and the film, is exactly appropriate. He falls out the car after watching it and just throws his guts up on the street. He's absolutely horrified. And you've got these two things going on. You've got this. Eventually, Lenny will find the tape and find out it's two cops that pulled up Jericho 1 and his friend, and they were mouthy to the cops, so the cops shot them. Yep. And Iris escaped, was with the rappers, and she's got this recorded on a SQUID device. So the killing of Jericho 1 and Replay is really integral to this film. And one of the things that resonate with real life in LA at that time, because 1992, we have the Los Angeles Revolution, as some call it, as others call it the LA Riots, in the wake of the Rodney King incident, where some policemen beat up an unarmed black man, and then they were let off during court proceedings, and then LA exploded off the back end of that. And that's obviously playing into a lot of the end of millennium stuff. So we've got the rap star Jericho 1 is an outspoken critic of the police. You see clips of him on TV after he's been killed, like they run clips of people what they've been saying when they die, and he's talking about the LA police force is a paramilitary organization. So when he's pulled over and being cheeky and mouthy to the police officers, they realize who they've got with them. This guy, who's always coming down on the police, calling them names and all of this, that, and the other. And it's their anger and bile that just blows up. And so you've got all of this stuff, and that's, in a sense, that's why they get killed. Yep, because they are black. And because they are critical of the police, and because even when being pulled up, they're failing to show respect. In other words, narratives that are still around today. Yeah, I mean, in that way, this film still feels incredibly relevant now more than ever, maybe.
You know how I feel? Are you asking me how I feel? We felt Jericho. We listened to him.
The LAPD is a military force turned against its own people. We live in a police state. The mayor and the councilmen sit up in their offices with their social programs that don't work. They're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. But a new day is coming. 2K is coming. The day of reckoning is upon us. History is and begins again. Right here. Right now. Right on. To the end of all things.
So then we've got the other side of it, where Iris is the witness and she becomes a victim of a killer. It's a most horrific murder you can imagine, as I've talked about.
Yeah.
What you've got there is misogyny. Yep, you've got this line of misogyny that goes through that is everywhere. Yep, it's Lenny's like it. He talks about when he's asking people to record porn, use younger women, not your mum, and that kind of stuff. Yep, he's a sleazy character. He's not a likable character. As it coming out of film noir, these aren't action heroes, that with a big
paragons.
Yeah, paragons with great teeth and all of that sort of stuff. And that's why I think the film's really clever, because Lenny isn't the centre of the film. Mace is. And she's both a woman and she's black. And I think the character of Mace just dovetails those two storylines. Yeah. Society, American society, and how racism and misogyny is just rife all the way through it, from top to bottom, and the police are on the side of white supremacy, as we'd call it now. So that's not in the film, but it feels like that's what's going on. White male supremacy. So the character of Mace, to me, is the person who's the moral centre of the film, the ethical question that lands in the film from both of those two narrative lines, which resonate between each other and she embodies.
I think the bit where it all comes to a head is where, they've got the point where you've got the two different storylines and they split up in order to resolve both of them. Lenny's going off to save Faith. Mace wants to blow the whistle on the murder of Jericho, and Lenny's just completely oblivious to even he knows about the murder of Jericho. He saw it, he experienced it through the technology, but all he cares about is saving Faith, and he's going to use it as currency in order to be able to bribe for her freedom. And Mace just looks at him and says, how can you possibly be thinking of using it for that? This needs to be heard. It needs to be seen. This is bigger than any individual. And sort of like checking him and sort of saying, look, come on, like this is you're really not using proper perspective on this.
She's checking him all the time throughout the film. They have a real big argument early on outside a limo.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've said to you in our discussions before this recording is that I kind of wish that this was like maybe like an 8-episode long Netflix limited series or something like that, so you could spend a little bit more time with these characters. And I love the scenes with those two. There's particularly the bit early on, which is introducing Mace's character, and Mace is really annoyed at him and is telling him all of the things that he's doing, that problems that he's causing it, and all these things. But I can tell that you still love me because you're even talking to me about it. And all he cares about is that the friendship's still there. Which on the one hand, it's coming from care, but it's a bit like it's not adult. It's like my cat. It's like when I'll go to the water bottle to sort of stop her from scratching the wallpaper. She just looks at me like, well, I got a couple of seconds out of it, and I know you still love me, even if you do spray me with the thing, so I'm just going to keep doing this, and it doesn't matter. Sort of like a sense of, well, nothing's really at stake here. I can handle the water bottle. And he's just completely not on the same emotional level as her, and that's sort of, and again, that's kind of the shelter of his privilege.
I think that's really well put. The shelter of his privilege, absolutely.
Commissioner, there's a clip in here that you need to see right now.
If it weren't New Year's Eve, I'd have you arrested for possession of illegal equipment.
Just look at the clip. You want to know who killed Jericho? You go into that stall right now and hit play.
Sir, is there a problem here?
Damn it, I knew it.
Come on, let's go.
Let go of me.
sir.
So the resolution of the assassination aspect of the plot comes through Lenny gives her the tape and points out this high-ranking police official,
Strickland, Commissioner Strickland.
who's meant to be straight-laced, by the book, all of those things, and generally a good person is the implication that's given. And he says, look, give it to him. He's the right person to give it to. If there's anyone left on the force who's not corrupt, it'll be him. And so she does that and corners him in the gents, tries to give it to him. But the thing is, the technology is illegal. I don't know if we really emphasized that when we introduced it, but the technology is illegal. And he just says, I should really arrest you for even having that. And then he has it kicked out of the gents. So very much feels like at that point that, you know, that's it. That's not going to go anywhere else. He's got the tapes and he's not going to do anything about it. So that's sort of like what you would expect from the tone of the film so far, that ultimately there is no accountability. There is no saving grace that's going to come from above. That's going to come from the state. It's already too far gone. We're heading towards a revolution, a war. An apocalypse. So Mace ends up then going out into this is all set in an open air New Year's Eve party. New Millennium's Eve party, and I think she's just trying to find Lenny, but then the cops see her and start chasing her. She manages to defeat them through fighting because she's an excellent fighter, and she handcuffs them to the stage in the third of 3 different handcuffing incidents in the finale of this film. And then the riot police turn up. And then suddenly everything's changed because you sort of feel like, yeah, this is some sort of payback. She's beating up the bad, evil, murdery cops, but then the institution turns up and says,
Yeah.
okay, so what we have here is a black woman who's just beaten up and tied up some cops. And what you would expect to happen happens there. The police start beating her, and it looks like everything's going to go wrong. Then a riot starts with the people around who start attacking the cops, and there's just chaos. And then you get helicopters coming from above, and the Strickland sort of comes down and sort of holds up the tape with like light on him, and like a winged angel coming down to deliver justice, and says these 2 cops are to be arrested for murder. And in the end, the cops, well, one of them commits suicide, and the other one just commits suicide by cop, effectively, by trying to kill Mace, and just gets shot by the other police. Which, I mean, I've said this to you privately, I find that a bit weird.
It is. It's what you described in the process of getting there to that point where Mace is being attacked by the riot cops. You think, yeah, this is going for realism here. Yeah, this is how this would unfold. And then the old white Commissioner Strickland walks in, parting of the waves, everything's resolved. But I started thinking about that, and I thought, in a sense, perhaps it's not realism it's after there. It's after a certain pragmatism, and he's actually making a point about responsibility, that white male America needs to take responsibility for this misogyny and for this racism that's rife. So it's placing it back, and it's showing that there should be that. Whether or not that's the right kind of visceral ending to the film we should be having, it's not realistic. It's not Mace who's ended up, being that hero of that moment. It is this white cop. It is an unusual moment, yeah. But I think it is trying to make a point about responsibility. And that's about as much as I can do with that ending, Matt.
I see that. At the same time, it does imply that the oppressed have no agency. If the moral becomes about the responsibility of the white male establishment to take responsibility for his actions and fix things, it implies that only white males in the establishment can do anything, that the only source of political change comes from those people, which I don't feel like that can be what the film's trying to get to. For me, the key comes with another weird move that happens later. As this develops, so Mace has been saved by Strickland. Lenny finds her, and they sort of like they have these closing moments. They're sort of talking together, making sure that they're all right. They're going to meet each other downtown as they get put into police cars. And then Lenny just sort of stops, because although, chronologically we've not dealt with this yet, but Lenny sort of manages to get over Faith. His arc is complete on that. And then he just goes up to her and kisses her. And that is the first time there's been any on-screen romantic engagement between either characters, at least the way that I read the film. Yeah. They come across as deeply close friends. It's a buddy cop film.
I think I've got to disagree with it. At least from the from Mace's point of view, there's a kind of like flashback to when she first meets him, you know, and he's this lovely guy looking after her son, cop, looking after her son. And you've got this sense that she keeps looking at him longingly, and everyone seems to know she's kind of in love with him. There's some moments when they're together in his flat in the night between the 2 days.
I don't know. I don't read that. I'm not saying that you're wrong to read it like that, but I don't see it that way. I think that what's going on there is she is desperate for him to be a better version of himself.
Look, I agree with that, but I do think that anyway. Carry on.
I don't think it's romantically charged. I think it's platonic. You know, and platonic's not a negation. Platonic feelings are their own positive thing, and she feels a real obligation to him. I think that's clear because you know what's happened there is that you know presumably her husband has done some crime. I don't think we're told what the crime is, and she's absolutely distraught. She goes into the house and there's just police there. The place has been torn apart, and Lenny has been sheltering the child from that and protecting him from that trauma as much as was possible. And they clearly got to know each other through after that, and he's sort of looked after her, and she feels this sort of obligation, but he's become very toxic and dependent upon her at the same time. And she's, you know, she wants him to get his shit together. Really, we can do the explicit flag for this episode. I think we needed that. And it all really hangs on, you know, which way this interpretation goes. It all really hangs on this scene where Lenny's talking about how even though he recognizes that faith isn't good for him, that it's over, that it was kind of toxic anyway, that it's not stopping him from wanting to help her and do right by her, even though she's, you know, an overall net negative on his life. And he says to Mace, have you never felt any like that about anyone else? And she says, I can't remember the exact words, but she just answers in the affirmative. And I feel like that about you because you are a negative impact on my life and you need to get your thing sorted. But the way that it's delivered, it doesn't come across romantic to me. It's not coming out of, if there's a longing, it's a longing for him to be a better friend, to be the friend that he once was and the friend that she is to him. And I just, I don't read that as romantic at all. And, you know, it just happens so quickly as well. He's gone from I'm over her to suddenly, oh no, now I like the leading lady. And it just feels like this isn't going to be my final reading, but it feels like what happened was a producer saw it in a late cut and said, no, you've got to have them kiss at the end. That's how these films end. And it just feels like something takes over and they kiss each other. It's even a very awkward kiss as well, which I interpret as the actors resisting this violation of their character.
All right, I need to come onto this kiss because I really don't see that reading at all. And I'll tell you why I don't see that reading. Because what happens when they kiss, it does something really, really interesting. It cuts to a shot of a policeman kissing one of the rioters, which is a version of that old Life magazine photograph from VG Day, Victory over Japan Day in 1945 at Times Square. So what you've got there is a resonance of kisses going back in, I'm going to say it, in a mise en beam of kiss within kiss within kiss, like these Chinese boxes going back in time. You know, everyone's out on this square. There are loads of people about. There is a kind of resolution going on there. And so maybe just to kind of reaffirm the point you're making, perhaps you can read that back into that kiss, that it's not, perhaps even the kiss isn't even romantic in that way then. Perhaps what's actually going on there, just like that kiss with the Navy officer and the girl at Times Square, it was a kiss of, thank God that's over. Thank God, you know, the world is not going crazy anymore. Thank God this has been resolved. Yeah, it's not romantic. It's not platonic in that sense either. What it is relief.
I mean, the things that you're saying about that sort of the filmic context of that kiss, I think that's good. I don't remember it myself. I must have missed that. But I'm going to disagree. I'm kind of going the opposite way. I think that is patently a romantic kiss, no matter how it's being used. And I think all those artistic things are probably true. You know, it's a keen eye there. But no, it's a full-on end of the film noir kiss. You know, head's tilted back a little bit. He's suddenly, the way that the shot works, he's dominant within it when he's not been dominant throughout the entire film at all. He's in control of that. It's the first time that he's been in control of anything in terms of the interactions between those two. He's not even been in control of himself. You know, it's a very traditional Hollywood ending. This is a really dark tone film. It's really pessimistic about the chances of humanity and things. And I feel like with the film, it's sort of running towards that point where Mace is just getting murdered effectively and just about gets saved by the fact that a riot starts. This sort of really chaotic, grim, awful ending. And then suddenly the film starts to, rather than carry on the narrative that it wants to tell, the film starts doing what we want it to do. Our own desire for the film, which is what, as Hollywood spectators, what we want is for the nice white man to come and save the day, which he then does. And we want the leading boy and girl to get together, which they do. The film suddenly does a U-turn or a reverse ferret, and it suddenly becomes the Hollywood film that you kind of want it to be. You want this darkness to stop, and it's this fantasy that, things can have a happy ending. And I just sort of read that there is a contradiction there. There is an inconsistency in tone, but I think it's deliberate, and I think that it tells us more about what we want. That what we want is so unrealistic. What we want. We want really the riot to just go away. We want it to just stop. We want the old white man, whether it's a Trump, a Biden, or a Corbyn, to just come in and then fix everything and everything be fine and make it that simple.